Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Black Heart sign of Black in again, asking you to hit that share button. Thanks if you hit like or subscribe, but the share button is where it's at. So, all right, let's get to it. First thing I want to do is I want to thank some black Muslims who have brought this to attention. I'm going to share with the rest of you in the black manosphere what we've already known and what I've mentioned before, but what now has been confirmed for me by others. What I want to tell you is that for whether you were IBM or, well, if you're IBM or you already give preference to black women. If you were SYSBM, and it's okay if you want to tell me that I'm not, because like I said, it's up to you to know if I'm SYSBM or not, but I'm going to defend you and your decision to step out of the so-called community when it comes to, well, let's say when it comes to marriage. I don't defend anyone's right to fornicate per se, but when it comes to marriage, yes. SYSBM is actually pro-marriage, and that's why I'm ready to defend your position. But I still have to give some information that may not agree with it. However, one of the tenets of SYSBM is that you can change this to suit yourselves. I'm giving you information so that you have that option. So, the information I wanted to give you does not involve a conspiracy. I mean, no more than white supremacy is a conspiracy. It involves more of a brainwashing than a conspiracy. And I want y'all to keep this in mind as I tell you this. The truth is that an SYSBM, although mad bus driver, I've been told has a black wife. I say I've been told. I'm not confirming or trying to disprove it, but I've been told he has a black wife. I've not been told of her nationality, and it's not really my business. I do want to point out that while mad bus driver in his titles tends to promote everything but black, and his actual content, he does specify, get the best Stargates you can get. Assalamu alaikum. That he doesn't really specify, a particular race. Nor does he rule out one. From what I've heard, I haven't heard all of his videos. But I wanted to point out that. You're welcome. So, that being said, the fact remains that he's the one who began it. Now, he doesn't claim to be a leader per se, but he does. He'll tell you he started it. And another man said to me, yes, I was with him when he started it. I wrote a little bit of it with him. So, yeah, he started it. And this was something that had to come about. However, IBMOR is almost the same thing, except that you will give precedence to black women that are not westernized. Now, I'm giving a warning to all, but more so, it is applicable to the SYSBM, and I'm not giving a warning from me like, I'm going to kick your ass if you don't do this, because I'm not the one with the beef. I'm informing them of the beef others have. I mentioned before that I have spied on people that are not black. I started doing this as an adult, not so much as a kid. Now, as a kid, I learned things about what other people thought without really having to spy on them. As an adult, I decided to actually go ahead and spy. And I did it for about 14 months when I had this really good job. And it was the one time I did not fill out the race-based questions on the EEOC page. The one time. It's the only time I've ever had a good job in my adult life in the United States. The only time. That being said, now that that's done, said and done with and over, I learned that some of what I'd already suspected in college. I learned that not only do white folks take serious issue with us, and it is based on DNA, it's not based on culture. They'll say that it is. They may even think it is. It's based on DNA. It's based on the width of your nose, the thickness of your lips, the melanin, the naps in your hair. Everything else just makes it, things like the culture are just what they use to justify, even to themselves, not just to you, but to themselves, That many of them are hiding their own racism from themselves. It's not just white folks. So when you search for a quality Stargate, I want you to keep in mind that the in-laws are usually going to be a bigger threat than the individual woman herself. And this is something that black folks have to really be leery of. Now, black Muslims were the first ones to really start to discuss and attack this. We were the main ones that did it. And a lot of the information that black folk that ain't Muslim have is something that started with a lot of the Muslims. I didn't come up with all of this myself. So I'm going to tell you now, if you're SYSBM and you're looking for a Stargate and she ain't black, sometimes if she is, you got to look at other things, but it's not race-based. But if she ain't black and she's good, you still have to look at not just her, but her culture. Because her in-laws are going to follow, her relatives, your in-laws are going to follow the culture. And all cultures are not equal. Now, if you're going back to the motherland, some people may just say, well, I wanted her to marry somebody from this tribe. You could have been from the same country, different tribe. And they would have said something about it, but it has more to do with what you're not than what you are. You could go back to, well, you get the idea. I mean, even in the Gulf Coast, there are families that just recently stopped marrying from each other. I don't mean incest. I'm just talking about certain families, certain last names that generally married between each other, and then they just recently cut it out. They just recently stopped limiting it. These were Creole families. You all have heard about that. This is not so much the deal anymore, but I'm telling you that hell, a little over a generation ago, it was serious. 1990, they weren't limited to marrying only each other, but a lot of the elders were still around and they still wanted that to be the case. There was still the pressure, but it wasn't obeyed. Now the pressure's gone. But if this could happen within the African American population, remember, Beyonce Knowles' father was not approved of by Beyonce Knowles' maternal grandparents. Remember that. But if this could happen within the race and the same nationality, what you think's going to happen when you start going into not only white folks, but even other people of color who look up to white folks and validate them? And this is why I've described it as I've described it before. See, I said this before, but I didn't expect you to take my word for it. Now I'm telling you it's been validated. I saw it on FB. A brother on FB gave this advice. He put up an article that another black Muslim woman wrote or put a video out about. He put up the link, and he said this is true. He said, if you are African, of African origin, because this guy's not African American, and the woman that wrote it is African with a British passport. What they're saying is, these are not African Americans, by the way. They're just black folks from Europe, and both of them are saying that if you are black and you are Muslim, you have to look out for not only the attitudes of the individual you might marry, but even of the in-laws. So in other words, the individual may be not racist, but you don't know that. They may not be anti-racist enough. And then the in-laws, well, you're going to have to deal with them depending on what culture they come from. So there are cultures that look down on people who marry black, and there are cultures that do not. And then there are cultures that are split and divided. But at least they know they're split and divided on this issue. They allow dissension. They allow difference of opinion. There are other cultures that do not allow this. India is one of them. So if you are engaged to someone from India, I'm going to tell you, either drop it, cut off the engagement, not because of her, unless you know something about her, but because of the in-laws. Or you say to her, listen, we're going to move to a black country so that I can protect you from your in-laws. Remove you from their influence. The ones that want to see you are more than welcome to come visit. And this way, you're in a safe space. You're in your own. If you can do that, sure. All right, fine. But if you can't, I would say cut it off for safety reasons. Not even because you hate her. She may be a good woman, but you're going to have to find a place outside of the influence of her in-laws and outside the influence of other people from her cultural community so that they don't come at her with this stuff. Why did you marry a black man? Because you see, even when they don't agree with marrying a white man, and sometimes they don't ask the question why. But when you're black, they have to ask why she married you. I'm going to tell you now, that's an issue. Pakistan and Afghanistan are the same thing. Yeah. Matter of fact, you have a worse time with them than you would with actual Arabs. But with many of these semi-Negro mulatto people that want to be white and look up to whiteness, you have to understand that if you do find your quality Stargate, your in-laws are still going to be a goddamn problem. Do you want your kids around them? You spit children out through these Stargates, and she's fine, okay, great, but she's going to get around her people. She's going to fall under pressure. So now she's in that predicament because of your semen. Really because of her people, but you walked her into that, I should say. They set the trap, but you walked her into it. And she walked into it. And then we have to stop and ask, do you want your 2-month-old infant baby who's still breastfeeding and can't say anything to have a clothesline clip put on their nose so that they have to breathe through their mouth for several hours because they want to straighten the baby's nose out? Do you want them at age 8 telling the child, don't look at me unless you can hold your lips in because the lips are big? Do you want them trying to learn how to perm hair before your child's scalp is strong enough to withstand the chemicals because they want to straighten your child's hair? You have to really you have to consider that, because these are real concerns you have to deal with. So I'm going to tell you now, if you're going to consider them, look at also the culture and discriminate based on that. Because believe you me, you discriminating based on their culture, which is something that is voluntary, is morally superior by a long shot than them discriminating against you based on your DNA. If their culture discriminates against you based on DNA, then you have every right to turn around and say you ain't marrying her because of her people's culture. Even if it's not her fault, you have every right to say to her, I'm not going to put you through this, and I damn sure ain't going to put my kids through it. Do not accept these, don't accept these risks. Because the same way that their culture believes that the lack of blackness in them is too precious to lose, we believe that our blackness is too precious to subject to other people's oppression. See, again, the problem is not the nappiness of the hair, the width of the nose, the thickness of the lips, the melanin count. These are not the problem. The size of our hands and our feet, our rhythm, these are not the issue here. We're not leaving the nigger community in the West because it's black. We're leaving it because it's niggified. It's like LAR said. He said stop glorifying street culture. LAR did not say stop glorifying black culture. Glorifying African culture, the Caribbean cultures. No, it's street culture, bashment culture, nigger culture. We need to stop glorifying that, because when they took us, we kept a lot of stuff from the music that we had from back home. But when they took us, they only let us keep the music on the condition that it was going to be used to glorify foolishness like cheating. Then later on, drugs and violence. So remember, I'm letting you know now, I've spied on these folks. I'm living in an Arab Gulf country, and it's not pretty. They don't even hate you where I live. They just still can't get the idea through their heads that you're equal. You don't want to marry into that, player, believe you me. Because then you're going to be dealing with, you're going to leave one type of nigger business for another kind of nigger business. And these people here will make you want to kill them. Believe you me, if you marry into this and you got to deal with the foolishness from in-laws, even when they don't hate you, you're going to want to wrap your fingers around their necks, because these people don't listen. They interrupt you like they know everything and you're stupid. That's a bad habit that these folks have. Kind of like niggas back home, right? Yeah, well, these people do the same thing. But they actually know less here. They're far more ignorant here when they do stuff like this. Not everybody does it, but the ones who do are so ignorant, they really think you're dumb and don't know anything, and they just keep cutting you off, and you'll never be able to get the message out until you elbow them. Maybe you can raise your voice and tell them don't interrupt you, but you got to be fluent in their language to tell them that. Or maybe otherwise you're just going to be wrapping your fingers around somebody's neck. And these people here are not going to say, I was right, the foreigner, I was wrong, the foreigner was right. He should have choked me because I was being an ignorant bastard. They're not going to say that. They're going to tell the cops, yeah, this foreigner choked me. He doesn't respect our country, and get you deported. These niggas ain't playing. They are holding fast to that ignorance. So I want you to understand what you're dealing with and start discriminating. Not based on DNA, but based on culture. I hope that what I said one day won't be true and necessary anymore, but in the meantime, I hope it benefits. Black heart sign of blackout, Assalam alaikum, and black male power.